Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai, e hi ake ana te atakora, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, ti hei mauri ora. Tēnā koutou katoa, nau mai ki te hui o te Kōrau Tōtōpū, the Long-Term Plan Finance and Performance Committee, I tēnei rā. Eid Mubarak to all who celebrate. And I also, just before we begin the meeting, want to give a mihi to, we'll take the apologies, but we have several colleagues who are either unwell or her family members unwell, so just want to send our love to all of those people and hope everybody is on the mend. Tēnā whakamohio mā ki te au, ki tehei kai tohu mana pori rānei, mena ka wehi, kui iti hui. So we are quite close to quorum today, so please, it is important that you let Democracy Services know if you intend to leave the meeting. Te haurua I te tekau karaka, 10:30, te kai timo o te ata, morning tea will be at 10:30. So we will go to the apologies. Kia ora, Councillor. E whakatakoto ana o I te motini. I move the motion that we accept the apologies from Councillor Free, Councillor Young, Councillor Winera and Councillor McNulty for absence, and from Councillor Abdurrahman for partial absence. Mā wai e tautoko, Councillor O'Neill, Inai ka potia tia te motini. I now put the motion which has been moved and seconded to accept those apologies. We're just voting on the apologies now. Is he online? Thank you. Those are carried, thank you. Conflict of interest declarations, I ngā mema tēnā whakapuakina o take whai panga e hangai, ana ki te rārangi take. Call on members to declare any conflicts of interest. Seem to be none. Then we move on to the confirmation of minutes. E whakatakoto ana au I te motini. I move the motion that we accept the minutes of our meeting held on 13th of March 2024. Mā wai e tautoko, Deputy Mayor Foon is my seconder. Inai ka potia tia te motini. Mena ka whakai, pawhiria te tahi. Mena ka whakahei, pawhiria te rua. Those in favour, please press 1. Those against, please press 2. Confirmation of the minutes. I've said confirmation of minutes. Ka whakapuaki au kua mana te motini. I declare the motion carried. There are no items not on the agenda and there has been no requests for public participation. So we move on to our only substantive item of business for today, item 2.1, adoption of the 2024 long-term plan consultation document. So I would invite welcome to our lead auditor, Karen Young, and to Baz and Andrea Reeves to the table, and nau mai Stephen MacArthur ki te hora o te kōrero. Please welcome Stephen MacArthur to introduce the report.
Morena, everybody. Nice to see everybody here. I just thought I'd recap, on the 13th of March, this committee approved the consultation document underlying information to go to audit. And I can say it's been a very busy month working with Karen and her team, and it's obviously involved a number of staff within the Wellington City Council to answer lots of questions and help work through all of that information. And probably also just really want to acknowledge the work of the elected members too to get to this point. It's a long process. We are getting there. We're getting quite close. And I guess really as a result of today being able to start consultation is a major milestone. Last night I sent out an email to you all really just to summarise where things are at, attach some information that's relevant for today. I just really wanted to highlight a couple of those points. Obviously the audit has been completed, and there is a audit report including the opinion on the table that was circulated last night. The updated consultation document, and for those that have seen it, it looks a lot nicer than the Word version. And yeah, so we have obviously brought across everything from what was approved on 13th of March, updated that given the feedback that we've had from audit and the changes required. The other thing I wanted to just highlight is, and Karen's going to talk about this in more detail, but in terms of the audit report and the opinion, there are two matters of emphasis, and I really just wanted to touch for a moment on what that actually means for those that probably aren't familiar. And I did highlight that last night in the email, but essentially it doesn't mean that anything's wrong. But if you're reading the consultation document, really what the auditor's saying is you need to have attention to aspects in the consultation document that we've disclosed or are part of the conversation. So on the OAG's guidance, they're basically saying make sure you take note of that. And speaking with Bruce Robertson last night, he said that's a good thing because it's directing people to be aware, directing people to information that we have in our consultation document. I will let Karen actually talk about what those two matters of emphasis are when we get to her piece. The other thing that I just highlighted is that now there's no ability to make changes to the consultation document because to do so would mean that everything would have to go through audit again, and we would most likely not be able to adopt the LTP in time at the other end in June. The time for further changes is after you've heard from submitters, consultation hearings and deliberations are at the end of May, and that's where you can essentially make other decisions or confirm what you've got here. So the purpose of today is to adopt the consultation document and that underlying information, and really just to make the point, whilst it's a really big agenda item in terms of all the attachments, you did sign that off on at the 13th of March. So really what we're talking about is the difference between the audited version and the changes that we've had to make as a result of that, and what was done back on the 13th of March. Consultation is planned to start tomorrow, and I would say that we are starting not late, but we wouldn't want to start any later than we were at, and some councils are already out there consulting. Just in respect of the matter of emphasis in that water space, councillors may well want to know, is that consistent or similar to TLAs and the rest of neighbouring TLAs, and I'll leave that question for Karen to answer. So I'm going to hand over to Karen now to talk to her opinion, and then after that any one of us could then answer any questions that you might have. Over to you, Karen.
Thank you, Stephen. Good morning, everyone. I'm pleased to report that we have indeed completed our audit of the Council's consultation document and underlying document, which supports that consultation document. Once the Council adopts the consultation document and our letter of representation is signed, I'll be in a position to issue the audit opinion. So the audit opinion is of the consultation document, and the opinion, I am required to provide an opinion on whether or not the matters in the consultation document represent the matters proposed for inclusion in the long-term plan, and does the consultation document explain the main issues, choices and options faced by the Council and the City and the consequences of those choices. I've also audited the information and assumptions underlying the information in the consultation document and formed a view as to whether they are reasonable. So I'm pleased to issue an unmodified audit opinion, and that means that, in my view, the matters which I've just talked to are reasonable, and the consultation document is an appropriate document for public consultation. In the audit opinion, there are two emphasis of matters. So emphasis of matters are things that we are drawing the readers of the consultation document to, because we are of the view that they are important. The two emphasis of matters are around the uncertainty and risk over planned renewals of 3 water assets. So we found that the assessment of the 3 water asset renewals is primarily based on age. So the Council has done some work on its very highly critical and critical assets and has much better information than it did in the last LTP. However, there is still some way to go to ensure that it has good information on non-critical assets, i.e. the rest of the 3 waters network. The Council has put aside, has budgeted in this long-term plan money to complete assessments on those assets. We note that the Council's level of funding for the 3 waters has increased considerably compared to its last LTP. However, it is still below the funding level recommended by Wellington Water to address its network issues. The Council acknowledges this. So the Council has prioritised work on assets based on criticality and also where there have been asset failures. Because of that and the underfunding of renewals and the renewals backlog, there's significant uncertainty until the Council understands better the age, the condition of its assets, completes backlog of renewals, and understand better the funding needs and puts more money into the 3 waters network. There is a risk of asset failures and levels of service not being able to be met over the period of the long-term plan. So the Council has made disclosures in its consultation document to explain its approach, and we draw attention to those explanations in the consultation document. The second area we wish to draw the reader's attention to is that as part of the Council's financial strategy, it has decided to fund renewals to the level of 75% on transport and operational assets, so excluding 3 water assets. There is also risk in not fully funding renewals, that the assets may not be able to perform to defined levels of service over the period of the plan as well. Again, the Council has provided information in the consultation document and infrastructural strategy and financial strategy to explain its approach and why it is of the view that that is the most practical approach to take, all things considered. I'm happy to take any questions.
On behalf of the organisation, Karen, I'd like to thank you for all the work that has gone into getting us here today. We really, really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
He pātai me utu I mua I te taupatupatu. Does anyone have any questions? Councillor Brown.
I've just got a reservation. My question is really to do with the water comments, because Wellington Water at the last Regional Water Committee meeting identified that the level of what they called maintain the assets in the existing shape funding required, this is across the region, so I don't know the Wellington City specifics, but the necessary CapEx funding to maintain the assets in existing condition was $2.8 billion. They indicated that they were expecting to get $3.6 billion from councils, i.e. there was going to be a level of CapEx above the necessary minimum. They had a request for a total kind of renewal of the system of 7.6. So I'm not too sure that your comments about that our funding, and the trouble is I've got the regional figures. So my question really though is, are you aware of what figure Wellington Water is asked to maintain the assets, and are you talking about our level of funding being consistent with what is necessary to maintain the existing condition, or relative to the sort of, the gold plating renewal, which is what Wellington Water have requested? Because there's 3 figures, and regionally, as I understand it from the Regional Water Committee papers, the Wellington Water is anticipating that it will receive more than sufficient funding to improve the quality. It's just not to the level they want. So I feel like it's slightly inconsistent with what you've just indicated. The trouble is, I've only got the regional figures. I don't have the Wellington City Council one specifically.
So the Wellington City specific is 1.8 billion, and Wellington City have decided to fund 1.2. So it's about 2/3 of what Wellington Water have recommended.
Yeah, but what I mean is that the 1.8, the high figure you've just indicated, is the complete system renewal type figure. The 1.2 we've offered, I would guess, I don't know, but I would guess that is significantly more than is necessary to maintain the assets in the existing condition. So it still will result in improvement in the quality of assets, just not to the standard they've requested, which I feel is more than a subtle difference to what you've just indicated, because you've implied that our indicated level of funding is not going to maintain the assets in the existing condition, whereas I would say that it is going to improve the quality of the assets, just not to the standard which they would like them improved to. Does it make sense?
So the standard which they would like to them to go to would be completing your backlog of renewals, and so with the 1.2 you're unable to fund that backlog of renewals. So renewals is just replacing like with like, an asset like with like.
All right. Pauiwi, Liz.
Oh, thank you. Can you confirm what I just heard you say was essentially you're happy with what's going out to the community and it's a no surprises basis that council have disclosed all that we know that our residents need to be aware of so that they understand the decisions that are made around the table. That's where I'm coming from, is that there's a better understanding out there of why certain decisions are made.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Calvert.
Just on the uncertainty and risks over planned renewals of 3 water assets, and you say the council's proposed level of funding for renewals, that we're not funding to reduce the backlog, the required backlog over the period, so I can understand that. Renewals are also funded by how much we charge in depreciation, and I might not get this quite right from an accounting perspective, but because we are underfunding the depreciation that we should be charging based on the value of the assets, not necessarily based on the backlog, would that have gone somewhat, if we were funding at a level of the depreciation required based on the value of the properties or the value of the assets, would that be more than what we've got now but still less than the backlog amount? Would you have a view on that?
So with the depreciation funding, so in 2022, council revalued its assets. The revaluation was much higher than it had expected. And at the time, council passed a resolution not to fully fund its depreciation, only to fund it up to the renewals amount. It has decided to carry on that practice to 28-29, at which time it will fully fund its depreciation on its assets again.
But does, from an audit perspective, do you have any concerns that we're not even funding at the level of the previous valuation of the assets, the old valuation, which is lesser, that we're not even funding at that level currently? Is that, yeah? So
we've taken, thank you, it's a good question, Councillor Calvert. So informing our view on financial prudence, we have taken that into consideration, that they're not fully funding depreciation on the assets, not fully funding renewals across assets except for 3 water assets. And we've also taken into account the council's desire to ensure in the current economic environment and impact on the community affordable rates. So there's a number of factors which we took into consideration. We also looked at the revenue to debt level, your self-imposed debt limits, as well as your debt levels compared to the LGFA covenants, because you borrow through the LGFA. So there are a number of considerations that and factors and ratios we took into consideration.
So just on the emphasis of matters, just generally, and you do note that they're referenced essentially in various, through the consultation document. Why would you put them in your letter? Because, and especially as your letter is always at the back of a consultation document, generally. And you know, so it's almost like who would get to, you know, I'm just wondering the purpose of doing it, given that the stuff is already in there, because and why would you just pick on those 2 as opposed to anything else that might be in the document?
Okay, so we issue emphasis of letter where there is some significant uncertainty or risks that lead to the uncertainty. Council had to have made relevant and appropriate disclosures for us to issue an emphasis of matter. If Council, for example, had not made relevant disclosures, and it may lead to a qualification.
Right, I
So
see.
Council have been transparent with its policy in this area, and we are drawing the reader's attention to these very important disclosures made in the document. So readers are informed when they make the choices around options and key proposals.
And so just one final question on that point. The risks are to who? The risks are to council, or the risks are to Wellingtonians, or both?
So the risks are around delivery of levels of service.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
And the risk of, I guess, assets, in this case, assets failing as a result of, less funding being put into those issues then required.
Okay. So of all the risks that we've got, might have been through the document, these are the two major ones that you think are the most important and should be drawn to the reader's attention.
So, yeah, these are significant uncertainties, the risks which lead to significant uncertainties.
Okay, thank you.
I don't see any further questions, so thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.
And thank you to you, council officers, and everyone who's helped us with the audit. It has been a big process, and we've received excellent cooperation and assistance throughout. Thank you.
That's wonderful to hear. Thank you, Karen.
I thought those were just questions of the auditor. Have we got a chance?
No, it was clear that it was questions for officers as well.
No, it wasn't clear to me. So I do have some extra questions, please.
Okay, we will do the questions. And Councillor, could I just please ask for a little bit more politeness? Questions of officers. Councillor Calvert.
Thank you. I always try. Thank you. Now, I do have some questions. I saw last night we had a submission form come through. Can I just clarify that if people want to submit, they do not need to submit on that particular form, and if they don't submit on that form, it will be considered in the same way as any other submission on the form?
So the way we're running this LTP in terms of submission forms is no different to how we've done it in the past on all LTPs and annual plans. There is a formal submission form that we encourage people to use because it directs people to the questions that are in the consultation document. Of course, people are able to provide submissions in a format that they want, that's set under legislation, and as a consequence, we also have an email address where people can send their views as well. Certainly from a process perspective, it's a lot easier to analyse submissions if they're written into the formal submission form. That allows some level of automation, and the time frames are quite tight towards the end, so it certainly helps us. But if people email their submission forms through or just write us an email, they'll certainly be included in the process and analysed and fed back to you.
But what happens if they want to post something?
Yep, same thing.
All fine.
Yep.
And is there any age limit?
No, we don't have age limits.
Okay, thank you. And just in terms of the engagement with the community, and I know there's some online sessions being run, and so if elected members want to run sessions within their wards, and I know that officers have offered to provide material, in terms of basic expenses like hall hire or that type of thing, is the council budget enables that?
So what we're offering, and this is as per agreement in terms of the consultation process that was signed off by a committee, largely the consultation will happen online, and that's what's been designed. So there's a range of different engagements that we've got planned, and I think those have all been sent to you. I think there's about 8 or 9 of those. In terms of individual ward members holding something within their ward, that rests with the councillor to organise. We will provide support along the lines of providing a pre-briefing, we'll provide collateral, and of course, if there are questions that are unable to be answered on the day by the councillor themselves, we're happy to, of course, receive any questions and answer those in detail and get those back to you. In terms of funding, that sits with the individual councillors to resolve.
Oh, so we would have to fund it ourselves. So there's no funding coming to hire a community.
That question's been asked and answered.
No,
Yeah.
there
I'm
isn't,
just making clear that that's the case. Okay, thank you.
It appears there are no further questions. Thank you all. Mā wai te motini e whaka tākoto. Is there a mover to the motion? And there is, I believe, Mayor Whānau is going to move it. And I will second. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou. I'll keep my comments brief. Very happy to move this. And when I say we, us, councillors as well as officers have put a significant amount of work into this over the last many months. This is more procedural for us, I think. The document is beautiful, very well designed. I just look forward to hearing what the public think. So let's get on to consultation.
And I will second, but I'll reserve my right to speak. He take he tau patu. Is there any debate? Deputy Mayor Foon.
Yes, I just want to join the Mayor in congratulating the team on a beautiful consultation document. Actually, we'll enjoy reading it, and I think it will be really helpful for our,
Could we please stop the side conversations while your colleagues are talking? Thank you. Off you go. Deputy Mayor Foon.
for the Wellington, for our communities to really dig in and understand. I do want to thank the staff. I know that this is a massive undertaking, and I don't think we can underestimate the stress that it has on our staff to get to this point. And we're still partially, part way through, but I'm sure there'll be a little bit of relief as we move into taking it out to our public for their views. But I must say, I do want to thank the staff on the engagement so far. I feel really confident knowing we've been out to the public to get their sense of what their priorities are, and I'm really loving seeing the citizen assembly feedback woven in through the document, and I think this shows that what an important way forward it is. So just over to the public, just conscious it's economically, there's a perfect storm whirling out there. And I just want to say that I'm personally very conscious of that for people as they're looking into this. But thank you to the staff for getting us to this point. Kia ora.
Councillor Pannett.
Thank you. Just very briefly, I do want to thank staff and the councillors responsible for getting us to this point. I would say we've had our first meeting in Pukahino. Councillor Rogers was there too, and it's quite a complex process was my feeling. I've got some questions to follow up with officers, but just the number of issues are very extensive, and then having to explain the background and then going, yeah, I think that's right, but not sure, so I have to double check. So it is quite a demanding process, but we'll keep going. Because it's really important that we do that, and just the other thing, we got some cynicism that we weren't listening. I said, look, we really are, like things like the airport. I'm really open to being convinced either way. The organics, of course, I'm committed to some sort of system, but how we do that, there is some flexibility. So, I hope that people won't feel cynical and that they will engage and give us some really clear advice about where we need to go. And the last point, look, I really feel deeply for the hundreds of people now who are losing their jobs at the moment. So I'm not going to have a big spiel on the issues that we need to consider, but we will do that later on in the process, and I would expect to see some changes made as a result. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor. And I do feel, I just want to echo those comments about the complexity, but I do feel the design document is going to be helpful from that point of view. Is there any further debate? It appears there is none, and I don't think, Mea Whānau, you will need a right of reply. So, in INA ka potiatia te motini, I now put the motion which has been moved and seconded. Mena kai ka whakai, pawhiria te tahi, mena ka whakahe, pawhiria te rua. Those in favour, please press 1. Those against, please press 2.
Can we take a division, please?
Yep, we can take a division. Ka whakapuaki o kua mana, te motini, I declare the motion carried. Thank you to everybody. So we now move on to item 2.2, actions tracking and forward program. No mai, Stephen MacArthur.
Thank you, Chair. I'll take the report as read. Simply one point I'd make is that we are going to schedule an additional meeting of this committee to deal with Q3 reports. When we looked at the agenda, kind of combining that on the 30th would have been too much, so it's enabling us to have the 30th of May free, really just to deal with deliberations on the LTP and the other meeting to deal with
And waste.
And waste. Sort of a subset of it.
Yes, all right. He pātai me utu I mua I te taupatupatu. Are there any questions, councillors? There appear to be none. I will move the motion. Mā wai te whakahaunga e tautoko. Do I have a seconder? Councillor O'Neill, thank you. Is there any debate? There appears to be none. In INA ka potiatia te motini, I now put the motion which has been moved and seconded. Ka whakapuaki o kua mana te motini, I declare the motion carried. Tēnā kua mutu te hui, I declare the meeting closed. Me karakia tātou, please join me in the karakia. Unuhia, unuhia, unuhia ki te uru tapanui, kia wātia, kia mama, te nākau, te tinana, te wairua. I te ara takatū, koe ara e rongo, whakaeria a ki ki runga, kia wātia, ai rā, kua wātia.